Hey there, friends. Brian King here. I got an interesting response to a post that I placed on my Facebook profile where someone said that they wanted to get better at doing more helping, less enabling to support their child with special needs. And it occurred to me that this is an important distinction to make because I encounter it a lot, especially with a lot of the parents that first come to me for help. Because it turns out they've been doing a lot of enabling when they think they've been helping. So let's talk about the difference between the two. When you think about enabling, it has a positive as well as a negative connotation. The positive is, hey there, Phoebe. The positive is, let's say you enabled someone to be more successful because you gave them the accommodations they needed. So in my case, with my dyslexia, I need the text-to-speech technology. So if you taught me how to use this technology so that I could be more proactive and consume much more written data, you've enabled me to be successful because I now have this tool that I can use myself. Now the negative connotation, hey there Trenton, the negative connotation of enabling is when you further, and this is very important, you further a person's sense that they are helpless, okay? So enabling is in the form of, oh, let me do that for you, honey. I know you have a hard time. I know you can't do it. So instead of using text-to-speech software, you sit there and you read to them, let me read it for you. Or they have a paper that's due. Oh, just let me help you with this part because I know I understand how to do the words better. So the negative connotation of enabling looks a lot more like rescuing. When you see your child struggling, they can't do it. And because you're swooping in, you reinforce that feeling that I can't do it without you. I'm helpless. I need you to come in and rescue me. That's the negative kind of enabling, and that happens a lot, especially if you think that falling, failing, struggling is bad and shouldn't happen with your children. You know, it's running up against those skill gaps that really tell us where we need some kind of new knowledge or a new skill or an accommodation in order to close that gap. The only way we're going to find those things is if we hit some barriers. You know, I am such a techno geek. I love the fact that the technology exists for me to really manage my challenges. So when I run into something that's not working, I don't throw my hands up and say, oh, I'm a failure, this is stupid, why do I even bother? I say, okay, I need to find a tool for this. And because of Facebook and Twitter and other ways of reaching out to the world, I can post something and say, hey man, I'm having this difficulty. Are you aware of any software or of any platform, any kind of workflow, any strategy that I can use? And I get a whole lot of responses of, oh yeah, man, I use this or I use that. I do not get, man, what are you, stupid? That's easy. That kind of crap happens in the classroom, and that's shameful. But out here in the world, where the rest of us are looking to be much more resourceful and get better results, we're going to help each other out with this stuff. You know, and it's a beautiful place to be. Now, what is helping? Helping, the way I'm defining it, is when you see that you complement somebody else's skill set. Okay? So, case in point, you want to assemble something. And this happens a lot in my kids as they grow and we need more desks and cabinets and dressers. My middle son is really good with figuring out how things go together. He has kind of an engineering mind. And he loves putting things together using the tools. I have a hard time doing that because of my EDS. My hands are getting weaker and more sore. So I cannot use tools, not for very long. So he volunteers to do that, okay? Maybe I'm good at figuring out how to break it down, how to chunk it. So I'll figure out the plan for how to tackle it, and he can complement me with his skill of using tools. So he's not coming in and rescuing me. He's not telling me, Dad, you're a total loser and you can't do this by yourself. It's a team thing. I have the things I'm competent at, He has the things he's competent at. We collaborate in order to make it work. So helping is much more of a collaboration, whereas enabling is much more of a let me do it for you. Let me prevent you from learning these skills, developing some confidence around what it is you can, because I'm afraid you're going to fall and your feelings are going to be hurt, so I'm going to prevent that. That's enabling. And if you enable too much, you raise helpless adults to always expect someone to come in there and do for them, not only because it's the path of least resistance, it's much easier to have somebody else do it for you. It's also because they've been instilled with a lot of self-doubt. Doubt that was well-intended, okay? You intended to support them because you love them, but you don't realize that what you're doing is actually setting them up for a life of, I don't think I can, I have a lot of doubt, what if I fail? Because they haven't fallen down and gotten up on their own steam. Another way to positively enable them is when they do fall, and they will, to say, how can I support you in learning from this? How can I support you in getting back up? How can I remind you that you are not alone in this journey? That I myself have walked a path where I have fallen dozens and dozens of times. Now, Kathy, you say you end up getting frustrated and say, I will do it myself, and I don't have the patience. Okay. So, Kathy, what I suggest for you is you start examining some of your beliefs as to why their progress cannot happen the way it's happening. Because if you have it in your mind, there's a should. There's a process that's acceptable. There is an amount of time that it should take for this to happen. If it doesn't happen according to my process and my time frame, I get impatient because it should happen the way I've decided it should. And then you impress that upon your child, and you're criticizing them by saying, your process is insufficient, your process is wrong, do it my way. So getting frustrated and stepping in sounds like that's more about you and satisfying your should than it is about supporting your child into finding a way that helps them be successful. So spend some time thinking about that. Because we really need to be honest with ourselves about what our personal agenda is, what needs of ours are being met by doing what we do. Do we feel bad when we fail? Are we highly self-critical? And for that reason, we want to spare our children that same feeling? So we rescue. Now, Holly, you say, but sometimes it's the parents that are trying to compensate by helping because they weren't helped by their parents. Yeah, just kind of what I mentioned a few seconds ago. You know, they have those same fears. They have that same baggage of, well, you know, I wasn't helped when I was a kid, and, you know, I felt abandoned, or I felt really lonely. I want to spare my kids that. Please work on your own stuff. Because if you are impressing your baggage on your kid's experience, you are then passing on a legacy that you don't want your kid carrying. That legacy of, it is your job to meet my needs as the parent because I didn't deal with my stuff, so I am now going to have our relationship be about solving my problems instead of setting you up for success in the future. Now, Kathy, yeah, you say, I just want it done. Okay. Who on earth said it has to happen in a certain time frame? You know, impatience is rooted in this idea of not only scarcity, we only have so much time in the world, we only have an hour, we only have half an hour, we have to get this done. Really? Does it really have to be that way? Or is that just a pattern that you've set up in your mind and you've been running it for so many years that you mistake it for reality? So many of those patterns that we just keep running, that we don't question and ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Does it really have to be like this? Does it really have to be faster? Can it be paced differently? Chances are it can. You're just so used to the rush that you don't realize that there are times when if it doesn't get done by a certain time, The sky has not fallen. This is something, I could talk about for ages. Yeah, love the crickets in the background. Man, I didn't realize you could hear that. We've got some kind of a frog that likes to eat crickets. He's small and he lives in the mud. And we've also got an iguana, and they love crickets. And we tend to overdo it, put too many in there so that they can eat when they feel like it. To me, it's also a relaxing sound. So I enjoy the crickets chirping before they meet their inevitable doom at the hands of the frog or the iguana. So I hope this has been helpful, that I explained the distinction clearly enough. If not, ask me some questions. Be more than happy to get deeper into this, because it's very, very important. Because if you enable your kids too much, you wind up with something called codependency. And what codependency is you don't know where your needs end and your child's begin. That you become so emotionally connected to what's happening with your child's life that, as I mentioned a little bit ago, you end up using that relationship to meet your own needs. And your needs and your child's needs become about, oh, I better do this to make mom or dad happy. And then you're not happy unless your child's happy. That's some dangerous stuff. And we definitely want to help you avoid that. So I hope this distinction has been helpful for you. My guess is you know some other people who can benefit from this message as well. So go ahead and share it with them. And let's keep the conversation going. Thank you again for tuning in. I really cherish all of you. I really appreciate your time. This has been Brian, and we'll talk again soon.